Luke Rockhold, a former UFC fighter, retired following his loss at UFC 278 just 2 months ago. However, now he has been eyeing a return to the cage. But he needs something to happen before he gets back in. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down Rockhold's potential return and what it would take to see him back in the octagon. So why did he retire in the first place? Luke Rockhold was once considered one of the best middleweight fighters on the planet, holding an astonishing record of 16-6. He also happens to have won multiple belt titles across many different MMA promotions. However, this loss to Michael Bisping back in 2016 seemed to be a tough pill for Rockhold to swallow, and since that fight, he had simply not looked the same. He had a record of 15-2 prior to stepping into the ring with Bisping in 2016, and following the loss that brought his record down to 15-3, he proceeded to go 1-3, losing 3 fights in a row. Clearly, that was the start of something bad for Rockhold, either physically or mentally, or perhaps both. But either way, it marked the beginning of the end of the once greatest middleweight fighter in the world. Rockhold's retirement came as somewhat of a surprise. At the time, he announced it immediately following the unanimous decision that went against him. However, it probably should have been at least somewhat expected. I mean, he had so many lingering injuries and medical issues that it seemed sort of silly for him to stay in the UFC. However, he is now looking at making his way back to the octagon, even though it's been only 2 months since he retired. But he will only come back under one very specific circumstance: if Alex Pereira defeats Israel Adesanya to take the middleweight title. What did Rockhold say, and why does he need Adesanya to lose? Rockhold was not quite as correct as we were when we said that he wanted Pereira to beat Adesanya. In an interview with Submission Radio, Rockhold fully expressed his thoughts on a potential return to the MMA scene. He said, "If I get inspired, if someone inspires me to get back in, you never know. Maybe that Brazilian dude winning the title, Alex Pereira." Rockhold then continued on by saying, "I mean, there's a ton of opportunity. I'm not looking to get out of shape in any way, shape, or form. I really still enjoy the training aspect. I just don't want to do the part that really hurts me. I'll do some boxing sparring, but you get into full MMA sparring and everything starts to break down when you're fighting the bad dudes. I'm just gonna work on getting better." Rockhold has certainly continued to stay in fighting shape, as he's been in the gym many times since he called it quits on the UFC. So it isn't insane to say that he could make a comeback. But why does he need Pereira to beat Adesanya for that to happen? Well, if Rockhold does return to the octagon, he is not going to come back for just one fight. If he makes a comeback, he wants it to be a full-fledged career revival, meaning that he would want to try and reclaim the middleweight title. However, it currently belongs to Adesanya, which makes it pretty obvious that Rockhold doesn't think he can beat Adesanya and will only return to the UFC if he thinks he has a shot at the title. This is a fair conclusion, as Adesanya is a very talented fighter and is possibly the best pound-for-pound fighter in the entire world right now. However, even if Adesanya managed to lose to Pereira, there would still be something standing in Rockhold's way of making that comeback. What would be standing in Rockhold's way if Adesanya lost? Rockhold continued on his interview, discussing the potential return to the UFC, to which he said he may come back if Adesanya no longer holds the title, but he mentioned one other problem that would make it pretty much impossible for him to come back to the UFC, and that, of course, would be having to fight a tough opponent in the #1 contender bout, somebody like Robert Whittaker. Rockhold said the only thing is you gotta fight Robert Whittaker or some S in between. To win or lose to Robert Whittaker, that S hurts. It's gonna hurt. We're gonna fight. It seems abundantly clear that Rockhold likes the idea of coming back if he could guarantee another title, but when he sits down and thinks about everything that comes with coming back to the UFC, he instantly decides that he doesn't want to go through all that again. Close to the end of his career, Rockhold suffered a long list of injuries that would keep anybody from walking normally again, let alone compete in the toughest fighting competition in the world. He suffered multiple injuries to his leg that were undisclosed. He also suffered from a herniated disc, which of course would make it painful to fight as this caliber ever again. Rockhold's road to winning another title is simply too difficult for him to map out without looking at another injury. And at the age of 38, an injury could spell certain doom for his body. I would find it very hard to believe that Rockhold ever comes back to the UFC, but if he were to come back, I don't think he would last very long. For starters, he would be forced to fight an opponent that would most likely outmatch him in a #1 contender fight, not even a title fight. This means that he would be putting his body and his career reputation through hell for likely no reward. Besides, if he had to fight either Pereira or Adesanya, I think Rockhold is a bit too over the hill to stand a chance against either one of them. Would Rockhold be able to beat either Adesanya Adesanya or Pereira? Well, the short answer to a long question is probably not. I don't think there's any chance that a 38-year-old retired Luke Rockhold stands a chance, let alone wins against either fighter. While Rockhold is still in tremendous shape and is continuing to train every day, he stands at 6'3" and 180 pounds with a 77-inch reach. Adesanya is 6'4" and also 180 pounds, however, he has a reach of 80 inches, a full 3 inches more than Rockhold. Pereira stands at 6'4", 185 pounds, and a reach of 79 inches. So we know that both fighters are taller, as heavy if not heavier, and have a longer reach than him, which puts him at a huge disadvantage both in striking and fighting on the floor. As we mentioned earlier, Rockhold has a record of 16-6 with all but one of his losses coming from a knockout. Adesanya is known for being one of the best strikers on the planet right now, and he has a record of 23-1 with 15 of those wins coming from knockouts, which gives him a knockout percentage of 65%. Alex Pereira is different as he only has 7 bouts under his belt as of this recording. However, he holds an impressive record of 6-1 with 5 of these 6 wins coming from knockouts. Clearly, both of these fighters are elite knockout artists, which is a style that Rockhold struggles to defend against. Not only that, but obviously these stats come from back when he was in his prime. This means that Rockhold at 38 and retired would likely have a quite difficult time dealing with either one of these fighters. The only edge that Rockhold has over these fighters is that of his 16 wins, 8 of them have come by submission, giving him a 50% submission rate. On top of that, both of these fighters are far from submission artists, with a combined submission with a total of 0. Literally, neither of these fighters has earned a submission victory, and between the two of them, they have 1 submission defeat, and it came from Pereira. If Rockhold was, for some reason, going to fight either of these warriors, he would have to take them down. He literally would have no other option. If he tried to go toe-to-toe with either one of these guys, I think he would get murdered. However, if he tried to take them to the ground early, I think he could work them. Once these guys are down, it is likely that they aren't getting up with a win. Neither of them excels at the ground game, and Rockhold loves it. The only issue is both of these fighters would train for that fight, and most likely keep Rockhold from getting in an advantageous position by keeping him to the outside and ensuring that he can't get close. With 2 months off and an advanced age, he would likely struggle to defend against their high-flying offenses whilst simultaneously trying to open them up for a takedown. Of course, in this sport, anything is possible, and even the underdog finds a way to get a win. Just ask Michael Bisping, right? Well, that's all we have for you guys today on the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you in the next video.